Hi, Pierces.
So welcome to Boswell Book Company's virtual event series. It is day 4148 of us being in business. And I'm Daniel Golden, the proprietor. I'm coming from my dining room. And the only difference between our adult events and our kids events is I am accompanied by a lion. I'm a tiger, because I am known as Daniel Tiger, my great nephew. We are very glad to welcome back Stef Wade, whose new picture book, The Very Last Leaf, features the adventures of Lance Cottonwood, who is, well, I don't want to give it all away. So with that said, if you know how to give somebody a little clap, let's say hooray, welcome to Stef Wade. Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here with everyone today. For those of you that know me personally, thank you for joining me. And for those of you who don't know me, like Daniel said, I am Stef Wade. I am the author of A Place for Pluto, and now my newest book, The Very Last Leaf. So I often get asked questions on how I come up with ideas for books. And the idea for this book came up a few years ago. It takes a long time to write a book and to get it published. So it was autumn time, which is coming upon us right now. And as much as I don't want summer to end, I love, love, love the fall. I love football. I love chili and drinking tea. And I love when it gets crisp in the air. And I love when the colors on the trees change. And I've noticed in the fall, I feel like trees have personalities of their own. So if you ever look around and notice this when you go out in the autumn this year, you'll have the one tree that decides that it's the first tree that's going to drop all of its leaves at once, like before all of the other ones have even had a chance to turn color. And then you'll have another tree where like a strip of it will turn color while the rest of it stays green. Or you'll have the tree where all the other trees have mostly lost their leaves and there's one that just stays there until the very last day. It's like kind of like me where I hold on, I just don't want it to be winter yet. And there's that tree like that. And then there's always a tree where there is like a leaf at the very top of the tree and it's made it through all of these autumn gusty storms, snowstorms even. And I'm always like, how is that leaf still on the tree? And then because this is the way my brain works, I think, well, why is he still on the tree? And so I thought to myself, I think he's probably scared to fall. And so thus was born my friend Lance Cottonwood, the star of The Very Last Leaf. So if you've read A Place for Pluto, I like to sprinkle in some nonfiction for you kids out there. Nonfiction is when a book is full of facts, right? So I like to sprinkle nonfiction in with fiction. And this book is very similar to that. I like to call it sneaky learning. I love to learn. I love knowing facts, and I know that my kids do as well. And it makes it even more fun when it's in a story that's fun to tell. So in The Very Last Leaf, there will be some fun facts about the tree and trees life cycle and the life cycle of a leaf in here, and some things about trees in autumn. And there might be some big words in here, and I will talk about those at the end. There's a little progress report at the end of this book that explains some of the words that are sprinkled throughout that might be a little difficult. So Lance himself has the name Lance for a very specific reason. So there is a tree called a lance leaf cottonwood. Most lance leaf cottonwoods grow in Colorado, Wyoming area. And I was actually just in Wyoming and was hoping I would find one, but I was really in a field in the middle of nowhere and there were not a lot of trees. So anyway, I was wanting to find one and take a picture, but a lance leaf cottonwood leaf is shaped exactly like this. So kind of that heart shape. And they're green in spring and summer. And then in the fall, they turn this bright yellow golden color. The illustrator on this book, which I definitely want to make sure I mention, is Jennifer Davison. This is the first time that we have worked together. Jennifer lives in Northern Ireland. She is super talented, and she has a bunch of other picture books that she's illustrated, especially ones that I have read and loved are Christian picture book series where she takes different books of the Bible. So there's Daniel and the Lion's Den, and she has these adorable characters drawn in there. So if you've never seen any of her other books, go ahead and check her out online. She's absolutely fabulous. So I know there's times when I'm scared. Some of the things I'm scared of, which I talk about in the back with my little author page on this book, is scuba diving. I've been snorkeling, but the idea of scuba diving and being underwater like that scares me. I am scared of possums. I think they're gross and weird, and I don't like them, and they give me the willies. I'm scared of driving in bad weather. I would not want to be driving during the storm that I'm in right now. And as a mom, I'm also really scared about my kids getting hurt. So sometimes I'm yelling at them, telling them to stop doing things just because I don't want them to get hurt. But there's different types of scared. So sometimes you're scared and somebody will, they'll scare you and you'll startle. So that's one type of being scared. Another scared is maybe if you're scared of the dark and you're in your room and it's dark and that makes you feel really scared and you want to hide under the covers, or you want your mom or your dad to snuggle with you. That's kind of another type of scared. But the scared that Lance has is more of sometimes what we call anxiety or worrying. We're worrying about something. So in our mind, sometimes, whether we're doing it that time or not, we'll have these ideas in our head about maybe being nervous and unsure about what's going to happen. So Lance is very nervous and unsure about this whole falling thing. He was so good at everything else, but this thing really scared him. And the other leaves sometimes were not the nicest to him because he had kind of maybe, I don't know if he bragged a little bit when he was doing all the good things, but they wouldn't expect somebody like Lance, who was so brave and so strong all the time, to be scared. But in this book, we learned it's okay to be scared and it's okay to be worried. And right now, I think a lot of us are a little scared and worried, parents and kids. I know with starting school, sometimes we get a little worried about just having a new teacher and meeting new friends. And this year, we all know school might be a little more different than normal. And so what Lance does with his teacher in this book is talk about how and why he's scared and what could happen because he's scared. So he talked about those outcomes. What was he scared of? And sometimes if we look at what we're scared of and what could possibly happen, and we work through each of those things, we can realize that we can work through our fear. So I say Lance is very brave, and being brave doesn't mean that you're not scared. It just means that you can work through being scared. And so that's one thing I want you guys to kind of think about when you read this book, and maybe as you move into this kind of scary new time with school, parents as well, is kind of think about what the possible outcomes are and how we can handle that better, instead of just saying, you don't need to be scared, but it's okay to be scared and we can all be scared. So I think with that, I would love to take questions about, if you have any questions about the book specifically, or anything about me or the writing process, I would love to see them and go ahead and ask.
And don't forget to use we're looking at the chat, mostly people talking about how great you are, Stef.
No.
But
how long did it take me to write it? And how many revisions did I make? So this book, so I always say when I'm writing picture books, I have two things that happen to me. Either it's a bolt of lightning, and I always try to work through as much of it in my head before I start writing it down as I can. And I write the whole book, and I probably write from beginning to end, and it takes me half an hour or an hour to write it. And then I do revisions. And then I have other books where I come up with the idea, like, ooh, a leaf being scared to fall. And then I really have to work through it. This one, I had that idea and I sat on it for a while, but it did kind of bolt of lightning me. But I went through quite a few edits on this book. I'm working with the same publishing company, Capstone, that I did with Pluto, and my editor there, Christiane Jones. And we wanted to really focus more on Lance and how he was overcoming his fears. And so I did a lot of research about working through anxiety with children and the best way to approach that. And I think I had written this book before I had Pluto really completed. And I learned in Pluto a better way to really seamlessly put those facts in there. To me, the facts have to be part of the story. They're not just got to be plopped in there. So that was another thing I did. So revision wise, I would say I went through at least 5 to 6 really strong revisions of this, besides all the little nitty gritty.
Well, we love the book. We love A Place for Pluto also, so thank you.
Yeah.
But my question is, when you have the idea and you're writing the book, do you have an idea of what you want the pictures to look like, or do you just kind of let the artist kind of run with it?
That's a good question. So I sometimes have in my head ideas on more, I would say, a layout. Sometimes I have them saying certain things, and so I have an idea for what the page might need to be because of what they're saying. I am the world's worst artist, so I can't even kind of fathom the pictures that these illustrators draw in my head. And both books, when I see them, I'm just like, oh, it's perfect, but I never could come up with that on my own. I am able to put some notes into my manuscripts, but very little. I really only put notes in there if it's really necessary for the artist to kind of explain what's happening in the picture. So like there was one thing I knew we had to change in here when the leaf in the beginning page where it said, better luck next time, and he's kind of flying off. Originally, he was off, and I was like, oh, but he's supposed to stay on, and other people are, maybe the idea that other people are flying off. So there's some little things like that I have to kind of go back and forth with. I am able to do, I usually do like 1 or 2 final checks on the images, but I actually have never spoken to Jennifer except for on Instagram. And same with Melanie. We've now had some emails, but during the book process, I actually don't talk to the illustrators at all. I think they could if they absolutely wanted to, but I've never actually had that happen. So I believe that, I come up with these words in this story, but I also believe that it's the illustrator's story to then tell through their pictures and let them kind of interpret my words in their own way.
I was wondering if the progress report was something you came up with right away, or if you added that on later.
I knew that I wanted to have, like we call it back matter, having some description, like as in like nonfiction information in the back. And I was really wanting to come up with a cute way to have that. And so when I originally submitted the book, it didn't have it, but I did have it in the back of my head. And so when they came to me and said that they wanted to buy it, I said, "Ooh, can we put this in the back?" And they said, absolutely. And we really worked through how to make it have that information, but still have a really fun feel to it where you're going to want to read it. I've read plenty of books that have that back matter in the back that I don't ever read because it looks really long and boring to me or my kids. I'm like, I've gone through a whole book and they just can't sit through a whole lot more. So I try to condense it as much as I can so that those kids actually will get the chance to listen to it, or at least part of it, and read it. I don't like to make it more than a page. But yeah, I did have that idea right after I had submitted the story.
We have one last question from Christy Schwan. What are you working on next?
Hey, yes. So my next book comes out June 15th next year. That one is with HarperCollins, and it is illustrated by Jorge Martin, who, if you've seen The Little Taco Truck, is one book that he's illustrated that I love. But it's called Q and U, Call It Quits. And it's the letters Q and U, and U is very sick of Q being so needy, and she decides she's going to leave him and let him fend for himself, and then he can't spell any words. And then all the other letter blends decide that they've had enough as well. And so chaos ensues. That book is a great, again, it doesn't have necessarily like the nonfiction in it. It is definitely geared toward speech, reading specialists, I know, you know, working on those letter blends with kids. And so this book is really great for that. I also found out after I wrote this book that a lot of schools have like a wedding for Q and U, that I'd never heard of that before. And so I'm super excited to have this book out there for the people that do Q and U weddings. There is a happy ending, just so you know. So that'll be out in June next year. I'm also actually have been working on some middle grade fiction. I am right now on submission, as we say, that we've sent with my agent to some editors. I have a middle grade story about a boy who wants to be a world famous domino toppler. If you've ever watched those YouTube videos where all the dominoes are set up and fall in all the really cool ways. So he's really interested in that, but he also likes to play sports, and he has kind of the conflict of can he do all of these things that he likes to do, and he feels the pressure from everybody. And so as he starts to make bad decisions, they fall. So the book is called Domino Effect. And I'm also right now working on a second middle grade, kind of an adventure story, possibly series at some point, that is very much like my picture books, where it's filled with lots of fun facts. This one's about Australia and the Great Barrier Reef. So, and then I've got a whole large slew of other picture books I'm working on. I'm playing around with a virus, not a coronavirus, but like a virus book for kids, kind of teaching how we spread germs. And I've got some other just fun, silly ones that I'm working on as well. So hopefully there'll be more announcements from me soon.
Well, I think that would you like to say some last words before we go?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Putting a book out in this pandemic world is, you know, not as quite as exciting as it is when you're able to see everybody in person. But one really great thing to me about doing this is that I'm able to have some friends on here that I know I wouldn't see otherwise. I see my friends out there in South Carolina and all these other places. So it's really cool to me that I'm able to get together with everyone. So I really thank everybody for their support. Thank you for reading. I would, like I said, if you've got a school where you'd want me to come talk to your kids, I would love to be a part of that. I'd love to do anything to kind of help them through this weird time as well. So thanks for being here.
And thank you all for coming, because we wouldn't have a virtual book tour without you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.